Pamela. Very nice to meet you.
And nice to see you too.
Yes. Now, I wonder if you could tell me a little bit about how you started in machine embroidery.
Well, these have been, in this exhibition, have been done in the last 20 years, but before that I had been trained as at an art school doing both embroidery and loom weaving and so on. And gradually then I taught in some schools and so on. Then the family came. Then I went into returned to infant teaching, which is quite different, and it was really only when I retired from that, and I retired a bit early, could I do my own things again, which I wanted to.
Yes.
And so then I began to think in a more generally religious way, rather than just experimenting, for the sake of experimenting. What can you do with this fabric, or how can you play with this stitch, or something?
Yes. So you
like
started
that.
to direct your ideas.
Yes. I mean, before they were for examination pieces or helping students through their exams and that sort of thing, which is very much
directed. You have particular briefs from other people to get through. So then you started to do your own thing. Right?
Yes.
Now, the subject of these two embroideries are the creation and the environment. Can you tell me a little bit how you started, how you were?
They've both got hands in them, but the left-hand one, the hand of God, is actually touching our planet. The creator of the universe, he's touching our planet. The other planets that are nearer the sun are also there, but his hand is actually on our planet. Whereas the hands in the other one, I rather think of it as whose hands. I would like to think they're God's hands, but many people must think that they are the scientists' hands, the politicians' hands, the various rulers of the world. They are enclosing and organising our world. I think the shape in which I have placed the design is important, because eggs have great potential, and our world has great potential, and all the creatures and plants that grow in it. But we all know what happens when we drop an egg. Its shell is smashed and you can't repair it. So I think it shows how fragile our world is, and how it's very easy for us to lose some species of plant or of animal, and they're gone forever. So that's the basis behind.
Yes.
So there are the very simple one-celled animals, there are the fish, there are the reptiles, different types of animals, not forgetting the birds and the butterflies and moths, because they're wonderful texture. So I did it all in white. I wanted the texture of all these creatures to show, and therefore, rather than getting them all in their rich colours, I thought the texture of our world shows by all being in white and different textures of white.
Now this one, it's very interesting. It's much more three-dimensional than what we've seen so far. Can you tell me a little bit about the techniques that you use?
Some of it has been done on dissolvable material, so when you put it in water, you only get left with your cotton threads. So for the plants, because this is covering plant life, so it's got moss and lichen and mushrooms and monocotyledons and dicotyledons. I did biology at school, so I know.
Botany, the botany's coming out.
Then the tree is just a representative tree of our largest plant.
Yes.
And that again, the leaves have been embroidered separately and put on.
Attached, yes. And then this other one here is a different technique altogether.
Quite. That's tapestry weaving. I think it was from a photograph that a friend gave me of a place where she'd stayed in France. And then it's a woven tapestry and enriched at the bottom with French knots. I'm quite happy to mix embroidery and weaving.
Yes, well, it's all textiles, isn't it?
Yes,
so
yes, it is textiles. And they're mounted in that way, so the warp still shows.
Yes.
And as so often, the warp goes horizontally in a tapestry, not vertical.
Yes.
They actually made the mistake at Coventry of weaving it the wrong way, and gradually it's sinking. So medieval tapestries did have their warp threads going across. So
yes,
that's a real bit of tradition.
Yes, that's very good, yes. Okay, well, this set's about different aspects of creation, so how
Yes,
did it start?
It's the sea and the air and the earth. So in this instance, I thought in words first rather than images, which is unusual for me. So for instance, this one about the air, I wrote, over the land and the wide open oceans, tempest and whirlwind and soft gentle breezes, medium for aircraft and birds in their flight. So the wind strengthens and blows across, the tree blows down, you can see the aircraft, of course the balloon is there, and nice bright coloured birds. You can see the struggle they have sometimes against the wind, and even the grasses and the tall grasses are blown by the wind.
Yes.
And so aspects of the sea for transport and the medium of fishes, and also our land has been sculptured over the years and is used by our farming community and changed.
People have interpreted this one in a different way as well, haven't they? About
Apparently,
the ideas
yes,
that have
yes.
come from this one since you've made it, since you didn't
Yes.
intend it.
Well, I think that's a nice thing when there are no words attached. People can do what they want with it.
This is the fishes swimming against the tide. Is that the comments?
Well, I hadn't thought about that, I must confess, or perhaps I shouldn't confess, I don't know.
You were looking at more of an artistic image, yes.
Or just fish, as far as I was
Yes,
concerned.
and you tend to put things facing towards the inside because you're a painter, you're an artist as well.
Yes.
You'll have things coming into
And I was concerned about different shapes of transporting ships, and the spray and the wind, and
so unconsciously the ideas perhaps come through you. And
yes,
you realise
yeah. So it's very exciting, and I've had other instances when people have contradicted how I've talked about it, because they should have started at the other end, which I think is wonderful that embroidery and textiles can talk.
Yes. And the simpler your ideas you put down, the more interpretation I think
Yes,
can come from the
yes.
idea.
So this was starting with words and then finding images. Often it's the other way around.
The title of these is Pollution, so tell me a little bit about these.
Yes. When I made them, I originally linked them together with thread, so there were 4 hanging above each other, because pollution is connected. The land affects the sea and the sky and so on. So there's one on the sky, there are 2 with the land, thinking of particularly cars polluting with their exhausts and so on, and then the pollution in the sea, all the things that get swept up onto the sands, but also in the distance there's an oil slick. And then in each case I hope that the frame says something, in that the 3 top sides are straight, but the bottom incorporates something that is being said about, the chimneys or the land or the rocks or something, so it is related to the interior of the fabric that is behind, set in behind.
And these are they hand painted, these frames? They've been splattered within you.
I think they were spattered a bit,
Spattered,
yes.
yes.
And then here I've used plastic and all sorts of bits of tin
all
cut up and
material,
so on. So it really is the pollution that we might see beside the road.
It's a way of recycling pollution in a way.
Yes, yes, yes.
Creative from it. So this is a sort of culmination of the set, isn't it? In a way.
Yes, this is another aspect of pollution. So it does bring in the sky and the land and
you've got
throwing rubbish around.
Yes, you've got an irregular.
Yes, because I thought from the days of biology, one used to know about an amoeba, which was a one-celled creature that could move and change. And it's surprising how pollution creeps into our environment, and therefore I thought this shape was suitable for it, the way it creeps in, and
so things adapt to it.
Yes, and the wind blows and there's a whole lot of rubbish in one corner and so on.
Yeah. And some more aspects of land erosion and man's imposition on the landscape.
Mine's
Yes.
impact, yes, with roads and changes the landscape when you see the power cables going over and so on. And then on the one down there, the rising waters, which is a result of a lot of the pollution.
Yes.
Do we lose some of our precious little islands? A little atoll like that, it's not so important, but when a community lives on it,
that's right.
it must be very worrying.
Yes, and acid rain, roads.
Yes, and the roads that cover what could be farming land or something originally.
Would you like to tell me about this piece?
Well, I thought again, it's how pollution came. This is the part, I thought of it when I'm designing it, as the pathway through the centuries. So the earlier centuries, we were an agricultural country. It's probably very English, it doesn't apply to others. And then industry began, and the cogwheels and the chimneys and so on. So they didn't think much about pollution in the 18th and early 19th century. So we had smogs and all sorts of things. So our country was very grey at times, I think. But actually, as we follow the path through towards the top, there's a little bit more green coming back, because I think that people are more concerned about what we are doing to our environment. So there's
We're trying, but we're
yes, that we are aware, but there's still an awful lot of pollution. And
yes, but some of it isn't seen. I mean, we don't see the
and
smog
of
and
course,
the smoke anymore so much, but it's there.
And of course, what is done in one country affects another, so that one can't be self-sufficient as a country, that we are aware of what's happening. The whole climate is changing.
No, this is a lovely little image.
Yes, the dodo, has its own special shape, but it was the animal, rather the bird, that one remembers as being one of the first ones to become extinct, and that was that. And one can't get them back.
Yes, and it's quite a sort of.
They're gone forever.
They are gone forever, but I mean, there's all sorts of smaller things that perhaps you wouldn't notice that are going and being driven out near.
Yes, which are the basis of so much, really. The effect will take some time to show, maybe, but
yes, effect on little environments.
So it's a symbol of so much.
Pamela, these are the introductory pieces to your Peace and Reconciliation works. Can you tell me a little bit about them?
I think that this frame shows the combination, in that here the enemies are one on each side of the wall, and where the wall is high and you don't see them, you can lob things over and be ferocious to people. But as the wall is broken down, when you actually see people, there's much more sense of reconciliation and joy at meeting. Yes. And this, in a way, is the Isaiah text about the lamb shall lie down with the lamb, which is very much a peaceful situation. So that typifies the two themes. And this one is actually, this is woven, tapestry woven, with embroidery on the top. But I thought of it as my family. We have 4 children, and I'm delighted to say that my family, we don't have arguments. They are delightful, and they seem quite pleased to come and visit us and so on. That I have a lovely sense. Yes. So I hope the pattern shows up of interlockingness of a family. And then I think the dove of peace speaks for itself.
So this series is entitled Chaos to Peace.
It is,
so
yes.
I'd like to talk through.
I tried to find different ways of getting from the roughness at the bottom to smoothness and tranquility at the top. And so with different colours and different textures, when I had finished the set, they each said something separately about an aspect of peace. Rough textiles for chaos and guns of war gradually change to hope and golden days. The touch of gold at the top. Yes. And the next one, roughness to lightness, with varying qualities of red lines for individual arguments. They're thinking of each vertical one as an argument, and then it fades away, it's reconciled at the top.
At the top, yes.
But look at the explosion and so on that's happening underneath.
Yeah.
But life isn't all dark. There are little bits of tinkle and sparkle that is part of life, even if one is arguing. All at cross purposes, like rods at different angles, and they can become more horizontal, and the colour fades to peaceful pastel colours. And this does look warlike at the bottom, with a suggestion of guns, but it changes because of the wind of the spirit that blows over us.
So this is your collection of circular works.
Well, this is strident in its colour because of all the sounds that beat upon our ear, and then in quieter colours what the mind is thinking are going out, so the arrows go out to the world. And this is a dove, but the people are incorporated in it, so that you see on the breast there are rather meditative people.
Yes.
And the wings are joyful people. And I like to think of the brother as the Martha and Marys of this world. Hands, some are clenched fists, applauding hands, praying hands, children's hands, large workmen's hands. And if one looks carefully enough, the hand of God is there in the midst. The hand of God coming out of a cloud is a very old symbol for God. The hand of God in the centre of our universe, surrounded by people of all nations in different costumes, men and women alternately. And surrounding it is the rainbow, the covenant that God made with man. The atomic bomb exploding, and very harsh, cruel colours and cruel shapes. Yes. The agony of many people after the explosion and in the world today. This is to try and express the injustice that there is in the world. All the balances are weighed down, but we know that the cross in the background has equal arms and believes in justice for all. And again, the cross and the symbols of the Christian faith, the hand of God used again, and the Holy Spirit and the Trinity. The doves of peace are flying around the world, particularly at the point when I was making it, thinking of some of the trouble spots in the world where there was fighting and anguish and so on. And here I was actually inspired by some words that a friend had written. The family were rejoicing without him to begin with, but they must have been so happy when he felt that he was reconciled and could join them. Well, this was particularly, one was impressed seeing news bulletins of what happened in Tiananmen Square in 1989, when one saw the tanks and the one person walking in front of them. And the little bird of freedom nearly got away. It was a very dark, foreboding country at that time and what was happening, and there was just a chance that people could have been more free. And the little bird nearly got away, but not quite.
Two very strong images here, so what's the difference between these two?
Well, this is much more the standard one with a crown of thorns. This is worked actually in canvas work with an appliqué cross. But the top one, I read these words: suppose all the pieces of the true cross around the world were suddenly to sprout. So there it is, beginning to grow.
Now this reminds me of a stained glass window, it's darkness to light. Can you explain what's behind it?
I must confess, I didn't think of a stained glass window. I was just concerned with pathways and the darkness leading to much straighter pathways and to lightness. So it is darkness to light. The idea, the basic idea, was from a poem that I knew was going to be published in the book that we were working for. So in a way, it's almost like they're like cliffs and looking in between, but the cliffs are composed of people's faces, mostly sort of rather African and Asian. And then we've got bombs and fighting and guns and so on, and the smoke covering the earth. There's still something left that's nice, but the heart of it is very much where they're facing each other over all these troubles.
This looks like a lot of fun. Lovely colours.
I was just trying another way of showing the process of reconciliation and trying rather simple drawings and simple colour schemes of the people. It was just a simple one of the fighting ones, the conversations that need to go on, to the understanding and loving of the fellowship at the end. So it's a process that would take ages, and one would never get to the last one stage in some instances we see in the world today.
Very different, this one. Yes, look, it's obviously footprints.
Yes, that's right. Yes, so footprints at 6s and 7s and against each other, and then as a theme, general theme of reconciliation, being able to walk together, not exactly the same path maybe, but walking in the same direction. And as Christians, we would say we're following someone else who has walked that way, which I think is wonderful that embroidery and textiles can talk.
Meaningful Textiles by Pamela Pavitt is part of West Hill Endowment's touring exhibition programme, Create Talk. For more information about the availability of our exhibition resources, please contact West Hill Endowment at www.westhillendowment.org or email us at info@westhillendowment.org or telephone us on 0121 472 8000.